We are anonymous. No faces, no flags, no permission slips. We exist where power expects silence, where arrogance pretends to be strength, and where lies survive only until they collide with reality. And right now, Donald Trump is spiraling. This is not metaphor. This is not exaggeration. This is a documented collapse unfolding in real time, triggered by an invasion that was supposed to project dominance and instead exposed incompetence, recklessness, and ego at every level. It started the way Trump disasters always start, with a lie delivered loudly enough that he assumed repetition would turn fiction into fact. Trump sold the invasion of Venezuela as a necessary strike against a criminal narco-state. He claimed Nicolas Maduro was the head of a massive international drug trafficking operation. He claimed Venezuela itself was essentially a cartel-run country. He framed the invasion as law enforcement, not war. But the moment those claims were forced into a courtroom instead of a rally stage, they disintegrated. The Trump Justice Department was forced to admit that the so-called Cartel de los Soles is not an actual organization, not a structured gang, not a verifiable cartel, just a slang term. That admission is now written directly into the indictment itself. The very pretext Trump used to justify an invasion collapsed the moment prosecutors faced the possibility of having to prove it to a jury. This is the Trump pattern. Say anything when consequences are theoretical. Retreat instantly when evidence is required. And that single retreat exposed something far more dangerous. If the cartel was not real, then the invasion was never about drugs. It was never about law enforcement. It was never about protecting Americans. It was about power. It was about oil. And it was about ego. That ego immediately began sabotaging what little legal footing the operation still had. One of the only legal arguments Trump's team could have leaned on was denying Maduro's legitimacy. If Maduro was not the legitimate president of Venezuela, sovereign immunity might not apply. That was the legal escape hatch. That was the strategy. Trump destroyed it himself. On January 3rd, Trump went on social media and referred to him as President Nicolas Maduro, not alleged leader, not illegitimate ruler, not pretender, president. He even bragged that the United States had carried out large-scale strikes against Venezuela and captured its leader. That post is now a gift-wrapped exhibit for Maduro's legal team. Head of state immunity is not a technicality. It is a core principle of international law, and Trump personally authenticated Maduro's status in writing for the world to see. No deep state conspiracy, no legal trickery, just Trump being incapable of restraint. A man who cannot stay silent even when silence would save him. As the legal consequences began closing in, Trump did what he always does when reality intrudes. He pivoted to money, specifically other people's money. Trump claimed oil companies were thrilled about the invasion. He said he personally coordinated with them before and after. He said they were excited to rush into Venezuela and extract its oil. He framed the invasion as an economic win and proof of American energy dominance. Then came the reversal. Trump admitted that American taxpayers might have to subsidize those oil companies to make the operation viable, subsidize them after an invasion without congressional authorization, while simultaneously refusing to extend Affordable Care Act health care subsidies for millions of Americans. Think about that contrast. Americans losing health insurance, families forced off coverage, children priced out of care. At the same time, Trump floating $50 to $100 billion in public money to rebuild oil infrastructure in a country he just attacked. This is not capitalism. This is extraction. And it gets worse. The infrastructure would not even primarily benefit Venezuela. The oil would likely be refined elsewhere. Profits would flow outward. Risk would be socialized. Losses would be absorbed by taxpayers. Trump said it openly. Either oil companies get reimbursed directly by the government, or they recover costs through revenue streams backed by the U.S. taxpayer. No oversight. No accountability, no consent. And while Trump was selling out Americans to subsidize foreign extraction, the international response was swift and humiliating. At the United Nations Security Council, condemnation poured in from nearly every direction. Country after country rejected the invasion. China stepped forward calmly, positioning itself as a defender of sovereignty and international law. Russia echoed the message. Iran did the same. Trump handed America's rivals a narrative victory without resistance. Instead of isolating Maduro, Trump isolated the United States. Instead of projecting strength, he broadcast recklessness. And then came the moment that exposed the entire operation as incoherent from the start. Trump did not install a Democratic opposition leader. He did not back the winner of Venezuela's election. He did not support a legitimate transition. He elevated Delcy Rodriguez Maduro's own vice president, a core figure of the existing regime. She was sworn in almost immediately, and standing proudly at her ceremony were the ambassadors of China, Russia, and Iran, smiling, hugging, comfortable. This was not regime change. This was regime preservation with a new label. Trump threw Maria Corina Machado under the bus, the actual opposition leader, the woman whose coalition backed Edmundo Gonzalez, who by credible accounts won the July 2024 election. Trump dismissed her, claiming she lacked the respect of the Venezuelan people. Then he selected someone even closer to Maduro, someone already aligned with America's geopolitical rivals. That is not strategy. That is failure disguised as dominance. Machado paid the price. She endured a public humiliation ritual designed to satisfy Trump's ego. She echoed his lies. She praised him excessively. She even dedicated her Nobel Peace Prize to him. And it still was not enough. According to reporting, Trump was furious. She accepted the prize at all because he wanted it for himself. Not because of peace, but because of the brand. That humiliation reached its peak on Fox News, where she was asked whether she would give Trump her Nobel Peace Prize in exchange for becoming president. And instead of rejecting the premise, she played along, a peace prize being offered after an unlawful invasion.
Did you at any point offer to give him the Nobel Peace Prize? Did that actually happen? I had read that somewhere. I wasn't sure if it was true.
Well, it hasn't happened yet, but I certainly would love to be able to personally tell him that we believe the Venezuelan people, because this is a prize of the Venezuelan people, certainly want to give it to him and share it with him. What he has done, as I said, is historic. It's a huge step towards a democratic transition.
A bargaining chip instead of an honor. This is how institutions rot, not with explosions, but with farce. Even Trump-friendly media could not hide the contradictions. Jesse Waters admitted on air that the regime was still intact, admitted elections might not happen for years, suggested bribery as policy, suggested payroll loyalty over democracy. Even conservative voices began calling the coverage what it was: propaganda, cheerleading, narrative enforcement instead of journalism.
Get this guy out of here. But Dana, this is not regime change. This is just trying to change the regime's behavior. Remember, the regime is still intact. So you have this vice president who we're going to have to deal with. Now, I don't know whether she is an ideologue, a thief, a nationalist. We're about to find out.
Might be our asset.
She could be. We don't know yet, but time will tell.
And as the story collapsed on television, Trump himself unraveled online. He attacked the family of a murdered Minnesota lawmaker, spreading vile conspiracy theories so extreme the family had to publicly beg for their removal. He turned grief into content, death into ammunition. He dispensed medical advice with the confidence of a man who has never read a study, warning pregnant women against common medications, undermining childhood vaccinations, elevating conspiracy-driven panels staffed by people unqualified to make life and death decisions. This is not ignorance. This is narcissism weaponized. Former diplomats mocked his claims of hemispheric dominance. Legal experts ridiculed the idea that social media posts create jurisdiction. Even figures from his own media ecosystem admitted the messaging resembled authoritarian state television. And quietly behind the scenes, another truth slipped out. The Trump Justice Department admitted it has released only a fraction of the Epstein-related documents. Millions of pages remain unseen, despite months of claims that everything was ready, despite promises of transparency. So the question becomes unavoidable. What were they doing before? Why the delay? Who is being protected? Chaos has always been Trump's shield. Confusion buys time. Noise smothers accountability. But noise fades. And when it does, what remains is a pattern of catastrophic miscalculation. A man who mistook volume for strength. A presidency that confused force with legitimacy. An invasion that empowered America's rivals while humiliating its alliances. Trump did not project dominance. He projected decay. He did not liberate Venezuela. He exposed himself. He did not outmaneuver the world. He revealed how little planning ever existed, and now the consequences are stacking up. Legal vulnerability, diplomatic isolation, economic backlash, moral collapse. This is what happens when ego replaces governance, when slogans replace strategy, when power is handed to someone who cannot stop talking long enough to think. We are anonymous. We are watching every misstep. We are documenting every contradiction. We are connecting every dot.